Hello, welcome to Dorset Woodland Blades. This is part 3. We're going to make some basic wraparound sheaths here. I've got here a standard 12-inch square of Kydex. This is normally the unit you can buy it in. We're going to see what we can get out of it. I've also got here 4 knives. Some of these are customers, this one's mine, who want a Kydex sheath, so I'll use these as an example. I've got a Falcon Even F1, a Mora clipper, a custom handmade job, and a handmade job which is a Blind Horse Knives woodcrafter model. We should be able to get all 4 of those knives a wraparound sheath out of this one piece. Let's have a quick look at the knives, because you need to take into consideration some knives are not as suitable as others for Kydex. Okay, the F1 to start with. It's nice and light. It's not very thick across the handle. The front of the handle is actually okay, it's rounded off, which is good because that's the bit that pushes open the Kydex. And it's got a bit of a choily lump here, a finger choil, that we can use as the lock to hold the Kydex in. Okay, so this one should be okay. It's a fairly light knife, so we can have the Kydex sheath finish further back because it's not got so much weight to hold. Next up, Mora clipper, everybody's standard bushcraft knife. I haven't made a wraparound for this yet because personally I actually do like the standard sheath that comes with it. We're only replacing, as far as I can see, a plastic sheath with a plastic sheath. Again, like the Falcon Even, it's a little bit fatter in the middle, has a nice sloping front on it to insert into the Kydex, nice and easy, and again a good finger choil here to lock around and grip and hold. So again, it's nice and light, so we can cut the Kydex back and have a minimal amount of Kydex and a maximum amount of handle coming out. As you can see, both of these knives are pretty much the same thing. They're a blade with a plastic injection moulded handle. Only difference I think is this one's about £100 more, although this is laminated VG10 steel, this is 12C27 stainless, so pretty good knives, pretty good steels, actually about the same size. Okay, custom handmade knife, it's very nice. This one's not been particularly designed with Kydex in mind. It's got a Corian handle, solid surface, not one of my favourite handle materials. It means that this is very handle heavy. It's quite thick on the handle, not always a problem. It does however have some nice sloping fronts to it, again so the Kydex can slip on. Main problem with this knife is it's got a very shallow profile here, which means the Kydex hasn't got a lot to grip on. So this one may be a problem, as the person wants to actually have this as a neck knife, so we're going to have to be careful. It might not happen, but I'm going to try and see it anyway. But either that, anyway, we're going to have to bring the Kydex up a lot further to grip more of the handle, just to make sure we can get the most security on this particular knife. The Blind Horse knife, again it's a bit lighter, it's got a canvas micarta handle, it's got reasonably thin on the handle with a taper up, that's okay. The front of this is a bit square, there's not a roundover, so that may cause problems on insertion depending on how far back we take the Kydex up the sheath, which may allow it to come in without touching this. And again, it's got a very good finger choil here so that we can wrap the Kydex around to grip. So knife design is very important to how a Kydex sheath will fit, to get the optimum out of the Kydex itself. And this one's a little bit handle heavy but not too bad, so we should be okay with a reasonable amount of Kydex passed here. So we've got our standard footed Kydex. I generally take, these are the thicker handled two. I generally lay on one about 3/4 of an inch past the end, inch and a bit up the handle. Reasonable amount of leeway here around the blade. Roll it onto its back, and then I roughly measure what we've got. It's about 2.5 inches, so on this one, yeah, 2.5 inches, so we put that there. which moves it in a bit and gives us a little bit more leeway here. Oops, sorry, 3 inches we'll take that up to, gives us 6 inches, so that one can sit there. Again, this one has a flat handle, so same again, roll it up, check them out. This one will move up to 3 inches. You don't need the width for the blade because obviously they're fairly thin. What you need to make sure is when the handle wraps, it's got enough to go back down to the centre and come out of it. So you're going to lose material, and the thicker handles obviously use more material. So there's those two. They'll take a 6-inch square each, so that's half a sheet. These are a bit thinner, the fountain even. Same again, roll it up. Measure on this one is 2.5 inches, so we'll give that 5 inches. And this one takes about the same. So there's our 4 sheaths. I've already actually cut this using the methods we showed in the previous video. So there we go. And we've actually got a spare piece which is wide enough to use for a loop for a fire steel or something else. Again, it's a consideration if you're doing production work. Any wastage is money out the window. I would normally be using a 24-inch piece, so I'd actually have a double sized piece of that available, which would be enough to actually make one of the sheaths for my smaller neck knives. So again, it saves a bit of material. You obviously don't want too little, but you don't want to waste a whole sheet making one knife blade. So we've cut our sheets. One other thing, there is generally a grain on Kydex. It's something you'll have to learn to recognise yourself because it's difficult to show it on camera, in which it will fold easier one way than it will the other. You'll get a tighter crease folding it one way than the other. This is more obvious the cooler you get from the ideal moulding temperature. So the hotter you get it and keep it, it should take out some of that. On these pieces, I don't know if you can actually ever see it, there is a slight grain pattern going this way on the black, which is the way it probably came out of the moulding press as a sheet. And I've snipped the corners off this one to remind me to fold it over this way because it's a square piece. These are 5 inches by 6 inches, so it's obvious which they go. One other thing on the Mora, because I've got orange, we'll actually use a 5-inch orange piece. I find it a lot more difficult. In fact, on this one I can't actually see a grain pattern on this one, but I know from previously on this sheet that it goes this way, and I've drawn a centre line on here. Okay, Kydex itself is different. It has a, as we said, this is the good side. It looks a bit grotty at the moment, but that will clean up, but it's got a texture on it. The bottom side is generally shiner and finer. One thing we need to do on these knives is to tape the blades. Best thing I've found to do this is electrical masking tape. The best electrical masking tape, of which mine is in a box somewhere, is the 2-inch wide 50mm stuff, and if you can get the professional 3M grade, it's a lot thicker than the stuff you buy in your local hardware stores, which means you need less layers. This stuff's pretty thin, and this will need at least 2 layers. The wider stuff just means that you can do a blade side in one piece. So I'll start by doing this one. I like to put it on nice and neat, because if you just wrap it around and round like I've seen some people do and it's all crunched up, those crunches and creases will actually show through the Kydex if it's moulded properly. So there's one half of that side done. As I say, the thicker tape you could probably get away with 1 layer because it is definitely a lot thicker. This is very thin electrical tape, the cheap end of the market. Fortunately, it's all I could get in the local shops. Again, try not to overlap because you'll get a thickness there which will probably show through your Kydex sheet. Do the other side. Okay, that's one layer on. Push out some of the bubbles and lumps, as I say. If you're unlucky, they will show through. But if they do show through, it means you've got a good mould because it's showing up all the detail, and that's exactly what you're trying to achieve. The main reason for doing this is to give the blade some space in the Kydex. You don't actually want the Kydex itself gripping on the blade. Two reasons for this. One, if it gripped all the way along, it would make it a lot more difficult to get in and out because of friction. And two, everybody goes on about Kydex scratching blades. Well, it's not the Kydex itself. If it was, that would mean Kydex is harder than hardened steel, so we might as well make blades out of that. I'm messing around. What happens is grit and hard particles of sand and dirt and all sorts get on the Kydex surface and get pushed in. And Kydex being reasonably hard compared to something like leather, the bits of grit sit on the surface. A bit like the diamond particles that are inlaid into the steel that you use on your sharpeners. And that's what's scratching your knife. You're basically running it along a sharpened particle that's stuck in the surface here. And being it's not soft enough to push it in, like say a piece of leather would, it gives a mark. So this gives you a little bit of wiggle room. It's not guaranteed to stop it because obviously the blade will scuff along it at times when you pull it in and out, but it won't hold it against the blade all the way along as you push it in and out. That's why it's important at this stage to keep everything as clean as possible. As I say, I'm in a knife making workshop, so I actually have in the air at any time huge quantities of hardened metal dust from the blade grinding, and also the ceramic particles that come off of the grinder, which are obviously quite hard because they're grinding hardened steel, which can turn the surface of Kydex into a piece of sandpaper. So I normally make sure I do Kydex first thing in the day, so all the dust from any grinding the day before has a chance to settle out of the air. And it's amazing how much solid steel dust you can get high up, even after a couple of hours. Okay, we've got 2 layers on there. Now, we shall just snip that off. Reasonably neatly. And again, around the blade, just leaving a mil or two of the tape, which will give a gap where the edge of the blade is. Just want to be careful that you don't run down the edge of the blade itself and take it off, otherwise you've got a resharpening job to do. Put that nice and neat. Okay, when we come back, I'll have the other ones taped up. There's no point watching me do all of those. See you in a minute. Okay, all 4 knives now taped up. Just to show you, I've had a slight change around since the equipment video with the oven system. Still got this toaster oven. What I've now done is built a small enclosure around it, which has given me a couple of shelves inside and somewhere to put my press out of the way. These shelves, I've currently got the foam in there. I'm using as a warming oven, so I can put the foam in and get it up to temperature. It's sitting at about 25 degrees Celsius at the moment. Air temperature at the moment is about 11. I've also got a rack on top of the oven where I can put things to warm them up hotter. That's running at around about 100 degrees. So we can preheat things and get the temperatures all evened out gives us a better control of the whole thermo cycle basically. So I'll get the press down and set it up. It should go there, and then we should be ready to start moulding. Okay, press is set up now. The foam's warmed up. Another advantage of this board is I can hang things on it now, ready for use. Screwdrivers are ready. I've put the Kydex and the knives in the upper shelf of the warming oven just to start them getting up to temperature, and also to take the chill out of the knife blades, especially the curry and handle one, because the curry and handle is extremely cold. We're going to do the clipper first. I'll do the black version of the clipper first, so that we do that. So inside in the oven, I use the bad side down, or the inside down. Start warming up. Okay, press is reasonably warm. Obviously if you're in a heated workshop or indoors etc, you might not have to worry quite so much about pre-warming everything. I would say I'm in an unheated workshop, the door's open and it's quite windy today. Oh, there we go. (260 Fahrenheit), nearly there. So let's get the press ready. Apply the third hand, get the knife ready. As I say, speed and accuracy is important. Nice and floppy now. Let's see if it's right up to 280. We want to get it up into the mid 300s, 330, 350. Definitely in the state where I would have moulded it before, but 312, which for us in England is 157. 340. So make sure everything's ready. Take it out, put it in. Position the knife. Ensure that the knife is pushed back to the back of the sheath. Pull it down nice and tight. Screwdriver's in to tighten up the other part, and then we can wait. Okay, it's been about 7-8 minutes now. Let's see what we've got. Still got a little bit of flex in there, but it's all firmed up. It's moulded well. Point to check is here. Two halves come in nice and tight together. If you've got a large slope across there, then you've not really got it right and you need to do it again. The knife blade's nice in the back here. We've got a nice tight crease along the back of the blade. So put this down to cool off properly. I generally use egg box. You can stand them up in, and I'll get on and mould the rest of them. Let's have a quick look. Moulding temperature is about 37 degrees Celsius, so we'll let that cool down just a fraction for the next one. Again, the more consistent you can keep your temperatures throughout, the more accurate and repeatable your moulding will be. So I've got the orange peat up here. I can't use that one, so the black one. We'll do the Falcon Even next, which is warmed up nicely in the top of the oven to about 25 degrees Celsius, so it's just taken the chill off in the workshop. And we'll stick that piece of Kydex